Under the thick veil of night, when shadows held their breath and the moon hung like a watchful eye in the sky, something stirred in the quiet fields of Maplewood Farm. The wind whispered through the cornstalks, carrying secrets of the land, secrets that clashed with the heavy silence. The barn stood in the distance, a lone sentinel, its weathered wood and rusty hinges telling tales of storms weathered and nights spent under the stars. It was here that a farmer named Sam had called home for over 20 years, cultivating not just the land but a fierce sense of pride. But this night was different. The air crackled with an unsettling energy, as if nature herself sensed the impending storm. The sky, a canvas of deep blues and smudged purples, held dark, foreboding clouds that promised rain. And yet, as Sam gazed out from his porch, he felt something else, something more sinister lurking in the stillness. Moments passed, tension coiling around him, heavy and foreboding. He leaned back in his creaky old rocking chair, his dog, Duke, lying at his feet like a faithful sentinel. Sam had always trusted his instincts, honed over years of working the land and navigating the challenges of life's unpredictable ways. Tonight, that instinct was screaming. He stood, a big man with hands calloused from labor and a heart stubborn with resolve. Without a word, he headed for the barn. Every step echoed the quiet urgency of his racing thoughts, the rustling of leaves outside stirring the hairs on the back of his neck. Something was off. Sam reached for his old shotgun, leaning against the wall, as familiar to him as the feel of the soil beneath his fingers. He'd never wished for a confrontation, but if it came, he would be ready. As he emerged from the barn, a fog rolled in, thick like a breath held too long. The beams of his flashlight cut through the mist, illuminating the yard that stretched out in front of him. Trees stood like ancient giants, gnarled branches reaching out as if warning of shadows creeping in. Sam's heart pounded, each thud reminding him of what he had to protect, not just the farm, but his way of life. Then, out of the corner of his eye, he saw movement. A figure, darting low, almost ghost-like, slipped between the trees. Sam felt a rush of adrenaline, a primal instinct honing in on the danger that lurked closer than it should. The bastion of safety he had built was at risk, and now the intruders were on the prowl, driven by their own chaos. He froze, pulse quickening. The shadows around him deepened. These were no simple trespassers out for a joyride, they were deliberate, motivated by something darker. Sam's fingers tightened around the gun, the weight of the cold metal grounding him in the reality of the situation. He could hear Duke's low growl, a sound filled with equal parts warning and fear. Through the fog, he strained to listen. He could feel it in his bones, they were close. Their whispers, hushed yet unmistakable, curled through the air like a snake ready to strike. "Let's just get what we came for," one voice hissed, and Sam could hear the uncertainty underlying the words. They were inexperienced, perhaps desperate mistakes could be made, and he intended to exploit them. Sam slinked around the edge of the barn, cautiously moving toward where he had last seen the movement. He thought of all the sweat and tears he had poured into this land. The years spent battling droughts and floods, neighbors who didn't understand him, and the world that felt larger than life itself. He wouldn't let anyone take it from him, not tonight. Then came a rustle there, crouched near the tractor, a figure rifling through his belongings. Sam's heart thundered in his chest. In this moment, clarity surged within him. He raised his shotgun, the weight of it familiar and heavy. His voice cut through the quiet like a dagger, steady and unforgiving. The figure jumped, startled, spinning around with wide eyes. There was a split second where time seemed to hold its breath, and fear danced across the intruder's face. It was a young man, wild hair, clothes torn as if life had taken its toll, clearly out of his element. In that instant, Sam knew this wasn't just crime. This was desperation, but desperation wouldn't save him. With fierce determination, Sam took a step forward, ready for confrontation. "You've made a grave mistake coming here," he declared, voice low yet powerful, a quiet storm brewing. The intruder's face shifted from fear to defiance. It was as if he was trying to convince himself he was tougher than he felt. We're just looking for food, man," the young man stammered, backing toward the tractor, glancing at the shadows for support. "Looking doesn't mean stealing," Sam countered, the low rasp of his voice carrying a weight that seemed to make the air around them shift. In that moment, the young man reflected a flicker of vulnerability, and for just a heartbeat, Sam felt something tug at his heart. But that heartbeat was cut short. The other intruders emerged from the dark corners, a couple more figures shadowed but resolute, emboldened by the night's cloak. They were here with intent, and now they were caught like moths to a flame. They stared at Sam, their eyes darting from his gun to his determined stance. "We don't want trouble," one of them said slowly, raised hands trembling. "Getting by isn't taking from someone else," Sam replied firmly, each word a hammer driving home the truth. Defiance welled within him, and he felt the strength of generations echoing through his veins. The land he fought for had grown deep roots, and he was its guardian. "Listen," the third intruder spoke up now, eyes flickering with urgency. "We're starving out here, please just let us go." The desperation in their eyes mirrored the fright of the young man's earlier bravado. Sam's heart wrestled with itself. Memories of his own struggles flashed before him, the losses, the moments where hope felt like a distant whisper. But could he find compassion to override the instinct to defend? He took a shaky breath, looking beyond the trio to the horizon where the first hints of dawn teased the night away. The fog lifted slightly, revealing the once familiar landscape swathed in a ghostly light. Was it fear he sensed, or was it something deeper? "All right," Sam said, voice steady but softer now. "I'll give you some food, but you walk out of here no more stealing, no more trespassing. You want to survive, then earn your keep. There's work to be done here." The young man blinked, bewildered, as if he didn't fully grasp the weight of what Sam had just offered. "This land has seen enough trouble," Sam replied, resolve echoing in his tone. The tension opened like a flower under the sun, yet the sting of uncertainty lingered in the air. One by one, the intruders nodded, their eyes wide, a mix of surprise and hesitant gratitude dancing in their expressions. Relief flooded Sam, and yet a slight tremor coursed through him. The path forward would be unsteady, and trust would take time to build. With a swift motion, he turned, signaling for them to follow him toward the barn. Their hopes and dreams mingled with doubt, every step forward echoing the burden they all carried. Sam took a deep breath, feeling the weight of both his kindness and the specter of the night fading behind them. He hadn't just protected his land, he had opened a door, one that could lead to something new. As they gathered supplies, the dark tendrils of night slowly receded, revealing a dawn filled with possibilities. The world was brighter now, the shadows less oppressive. Here at Maplewood, the air crackled with tension before a reluctant truce formed in the early rays of sunlight, binding strangers in a shared moment of understanding. And as Sam watched them gather the food, a seed of change began to sprout, a reminder that even in the darkness, the light of understanding could take root. The moon hung low in the sky, casting a pale light across the fields of Maplewood Farm. It was a night like any other, but tonight an electric tension crackled in the air, a sense of impending chaos looming just beyond the horizon. The world was asleep, crickets chirping their lullabies, the wind whispering a soothing song through the cornstalks, but not for Sam. No, he was wide awake, a feeling deep in his gut warning him that something was about to break the stillness. Just a week earlier, Sam had seen shadows moving near his barn. At first, he brushed it off as tricks of the light, figments birthed by a tired mind. But that nagging feeling never left. The world was changing around him, and he was aware that not everyone shared his love for the land he'd worked so hard to build. He'd heard whispers in town, a few recent break-ins, farmers left scrambling in the wake of the trouble. The comfort of home was fraying at the edges, and the night felt like a blanket hiding a storm. As he sat on his porch, the sound of rustling leaves caught his attention. It felt like a warning shot, a prelude to the chaos that was about to unfold. He glanced down at Duke, his loyal dog, who lay curled up at his feet. The dog's ears perked up, muscles tensing, knowing something was off. Sam reached down, scratching Duke behind the ears, trying to quell his own rising anxiety. "Just the wind, boy," he whispered, though even he didn't sound convinced. Then it happened. A loud crash echoed from behind the barn, jolting Sam from his thoughts. He was on his feet in an instant. Adrenaline flooded his body, every sense sharpened. The familiar creaks of the old floorboards beneath him faded, replaced with the unmistakable sound of shuffling footsteps sneaking through the night. Sam could feel a storm brewing inside him, anger, fear, the urge to protect what was his. He was ready. He made his way into the barn, moving like a ghost. The air was thick with the scent of hay and hard work, the very essence of what he loved. Sam had spent years cultivating this place, pouring his heart into the soil that seemed to birth life in its most vibrant forms. Now it was time to defend it. He reached for his old shotgun hanging by the door, the chill of the metal grounding him in that moment of clarity. It was worn but reliable, just like him. As he stepped outside, shadows danced across the moonlit ground. He scanned the yard, heart hammering in his chest. And there, just beyond the old truck, were the intruders, a trio of ragged figures, their faces obscured by the dark hoods of their sweatshirts. Each one was a mere silhouette cast against the barn's wooden side, yet the intent of their presence was palpable. They were there to take, not to ask. Sam shouted, the word cutting through the night like a knife. The figures froze, their heads snapping in his direction. Time seemed to halt for a moment, the world around them quieting as if aware of the gravity of the confrontation. The moon bore witness to the standoff, unfolding beneath its pale glow. He raised the shotgun, his grip steady, the weight of it a comfort. Fear spiraled within the intruders, searching their minds for a strategy, figuring out their next step. The tension crackled in the air, a live wire waiting for a spark to pull them all into chaos. Then from the pack, one of them stepped forward, hands raised. The voice trembled with a mix of bravado and uncertainty, the tone betraying their intentions. "We just need food. Doesn't matter what you need," Sam shot back, his voice firm and unyielding. His glare was unwavering, each word layered with the gravity of his experience. He wasn't just facing them as a farmer, he was defending his life's work, his integrity. Behind him, Duke let out a low growl, the kind that sent chills down the intruder's spines. Sam glanced back at his companion, the dog's loyalty evident in every tense muscle. Sam turned his attention back to the intruders, preparing himself for whatever might come next. There was no escaping the inevitable. The night had already taken on a life of its own. "Let's talk this out," the young man clamored, his face growing more desperate. He scanned Sam's features for anything that might signal a relinquishment of authority. "We just need something to eat." In that instant, Sam faltered. The plea struck an unexpected chord, echoing the memories of his own struggles when he had lost everything and had to start from scratch. He could remember the nights spent under the stars, the gnawing hunger that sometimes accompanied the relentless pursuit of his dreams. But those moments didn't justify taking from another. "Finding food doesn't mean taking from me," Sam replied, his voice softer now yet still firm. "How about you help me with the harvest?" Gathering his thoughts, Sam saw a flicker of confusion ripple through the intruders. They hadn't expected resistance, much less the offer of cooperation. The shadows that had once concealed their intentions were slowly giving way to a dawning realization that maybe this man understood their desperation in ways they hadn't considered, but their hesitation only fueled Sam's determination. "You want to eat? Earn it. Help out here and you'll leave with something more than you came for." The intruders exchanged glances, instinct and uncertainty battling within them. The grip of fear still tied them together, but a new tether began to form: curiosity, a flicker of hope. Another one muttered, uncertainty written all over his face. Sam took a step closer, lowering the gun just slightly. "Look around, the world's hard as it is. You'll find nothing without putting in the effort." Duke shifted beside Sam, sensing the changing dynamics. The once aggressive standoff filled with fear became a budding dialogue fueled by a shared need, though the risks still lingered like shadows. And yet in that fragile moment, a connection began to breathe between them. Finally, the ringleader nodded slowly, as if summoning the courage to let go of pride. "All right, we'll help, just." The tension slowly began to thaw, a fragile truce born not just from fear but from an understanding of mutual survival. Sam motioned for them to follow him into the barn, the shadows dispersing but not disappearing entirely. As they made their way inside, the scent of fresh hay filled the air, casting the place in a warm glow that pushed back the chill of the night. The intruders looked around at the tools, the equipment, the bags filled with seeds, life and potential bursting at the seams. What had once felt like just a barn now became a living sanctuary of hard work. They moved cautiously, curiosity mingled with trust not entirely formed, but taking root nonetheless. "Here, take this," Sam directed, handing one of them a shovel. "We'll start with the garden." The young man took the tool hesitantly, glancing at his friends for reassurance before stepping forward to make himself useful. The others followed suit, slowly breathing life back into the dusty space. As the night wore on, darkness began to lift and dawn broke, casting warm hues over the fields. Together, they toiled under the watchful eye of the sun. The rhythmic sound of shovels hitting the earth became almost musical, the hollow thuds a stark contrast to the chaos that had once filled the air. With each moment spent alongside Sam, the once tense intruders found rhythm in their work. They laughed, exchanged stories, shared snippets of their lives' painful truths, mingling with the hope of new beginnings. In those fleeting hours, the weight of survival shifted from a burden to a shared mission. Days turned into weeks, and the bond began to solidify. Sam learned their names: Mike, Jenna, and Kyle. Each had their own reasons for the life they'd chosen, but slowly their resolve to steal transformed into something wonderful, a commitment to build alongside him. Each evening brought new challenges, but sunset felt different now. It brought with it a sense of camaraderie, strengthened by shared labor and dinner gathered round the table. The fields flourished under their hands, producing more than crops. They forged a community. What had started as a confrontation under the shroud of darkness gave way to a new chapter, one where old wounds began to heal, and laughter intertwined with the fruit of collective effort. Sam was proud of the bonds formed. The conversations held by the glowing light of the fire pit became infusions of shared history, memories of loss wrapped up with new beginnings rising. The menace of that first night faded into nothing more than a distant memory, a reminder of how quickly one's perspective can change when faced with desperation. That night, the fight to protect turned into a collaboration for survival. Sam didn't just save his farm, he fostered hope in 3 lost souls who had once stood in the shadows, unsure and afraid. Now, as the sun rose each day, Sam felt a warmth in his heart, knowing that every season would unfold with challenges, but never again alone. The shadows had not only been faced, they had been welcomed into the light. And in that light, they found a way forward, hand in hand, thriving together on the land they'd come to love. The night was a cloak of darkness, thick and suffocating, enveloping Maplewood Farm like a secret. The air held a chill, whispering through the fields, creeping into the cracks of the old barn. That evening, Sam sat quietly on his worn porch, cradling a mug of weak coffee, the warmth radiating into the cool night. The waves of silence were occasionally punctured by the rustling of leaves and the low crooning of a distant owl. He was used to the quiet, the calm that came before a storm, but tonight felt different. A sense of unease hung heavy in the air. Instinct tugged at him like an anxious dog yearning for attention. Just behind him, the barn loomed like a watchful guardian, its wooden frame sturdy yet weary from years of labor. Sam could feel its presence, a comfort he clung to in this hour of solitude. Yet deep within, something stirred a primal awareness, a feeling that danger was edging closer. That's when it happened. A A sound broke through the stillness, a sharp crack echoing from the direction of the barn. Sam's heart raced, the mug slipping from his fingers and shattering against the hard ground, spilling coffee like dark ink across the wooden planks. He wasn't dreaming anymore. Sam was on his feet, adrenaline coursing through his veins, instincts kicking in like a well-oiled machine. Duke, his loyal dog, sprang up, barking ferociously, the sound resonating with an urgency that electrified the air. Sam felt his grip tight around the old shotgun hanging near the door. He had kept it clean and ready for this very moment, even if he had long hoped it wouldn't come. He commanded, not wanting the dog to rush into danger. As he crept toward the barn, the shadows danced along the ground, each movement a reminder that something lurked just beyond the veil. He reached the edge of the barn, heart pounding like a drum in a marching band. The sounds of shuffling and muffled voices reached his ears, the urgency radiating from behind the wooden walls. One voice hissed, sounding nervous and shaky. "Shut up," another voice shot back, sharper this time, filled with anxiety. Sam peered into the barn, the dim light revealing the unmistakable forms of three intruders, their movements quick and frantic, rummaging through his things as if they had a right to take what wasn't theirs. Anger flared within Sam, burning bright against the backdrop of fear. "How dare they?" Without thinking, he called out, the gravel in his voice cutting through the tension. "Hey!" The intruders froze, their heads snapping in his direction, wide eyes reflecting the fear and surprise of being caught. One of them shouted, panic flashing across their faces as they scrambled toward the back exit of the barn. But Sam wasn't about to let them escape that easily. With the instincts of a man who had fought for everything he owned, he raised the shotgun, steadying it with a deadly precision that came from years of hard work and determination. He commanded, his voice echoing off the barn walls, the weight of it resonating in that fleeting moment. One of the intruders paused, hands raised in a gesture of surrender, their breath coming in quick gasps. "We didn't mean any harm, just..." Sam took a deep breath, assessing the situation unfolding before him. The urgency in the intruder's voice mirrored a vulnerability that flickered through the shadows. He could see now the ragged clothing, the dirt smudged on their faces. This wasn't a gang out for a thrill. They were hungry, desperate. "I can't just let you leave," Sam said, lowering the gun cautiously, if only slightly enough for them to understand that he wasn't just a mindless guardian. "You trespassed. What if I called the cops?" The silence that fell over them felt heavier now, the tension rising anew as he weighed their fate in his hands. Fear gripped the intruders, but it was the glimmer of something else he saw in their eyes: regret, perhaps desperation. Sam felt that flicker of understanding ignite within him, a memory of his own struggles surfacing. In that moment, he decided to take a chance. The intruder with the upraised hands blinked, confusion etched across their features. Sam repeated, the edges of his voice softened, drawing them into a conversation. We were hungry," the young man admitted, his voice wavering but honest. "We didn't think." "No, you didn't think." Sam lowered his weapon fully, the shotgun now resting at his side, signaling that he wasn't out for blood. "I could kick you out, call the police, or..." The intruders exchanged nervous glances, their expressions a mixture of relief and disbelief. Sam took a step closer, scanning their expressions, searching for signs of authenticity. "If you're willing to work, I can offer you food, a place to sleep tonight." One of them, a girl with wild hair and sunken cheeks, hesitated before speaking up. "You'd really do that?" Sam nodded. The soft rustle of the leaves outside seemed to echo the change in the air, a breeze sweeping through the barn as uncertainty began to dissipate. It was a long shot, but in his heart, Sam believed in second chances, and perhaps this was one worth taking. "All right," the girl finally said, her voice steadying with determination. Sam exhaled, the relief washing over him like a soothing wave. "Start with the garden." As they began to move, each took on their tasks hesitantly at first, still grappling with disbelief. Sam showed them how to work the land, demonstrating the proper techniques, his hands guiding theirs through the motions. Slowly, the fear started to melt into something more tangible: curiosity, connection, even laughter. Days turned into weeks. The rhythm of their lives intertwined, laughter echoing through the fields where once silence ruled, forging bonds as they toiled through the sun-drenched afternoons. Sam watched as they discovered the sense of pride in hard work, the joy of seeing crops flourish under their fingers. With each shared meal, they teasingly competed over who had the most blossoms sprout from their row, finding joy in the small victories. Sam shared stories of the land, of its history woven deeply into his own journey, and in turn, they opened up about their lives, their hardships, the decisions that had led them to that desperate night of intrusion. He learned of thriving cities, of hopes dashed by circumstances beyond their control, of families torn apart by addiction, loss, hardship. The young man often looked up to Sam, hanging on every word, eager to soak in his wisdom. Sam smiled knowingly, realizing that he was not just teaching them about farming, he was showing them a life worth living, a life grounded in purpose and resilience. As the harvest season approached, everything culminated in a celebration. They gathered under the wide expanse of the stars, laughter spilling out into the night. They shared a meal, hands reaching for the bounty they had cultivated together. Sam looked around at the gathered group, the once desperate intruders transformed into more than just workers. They were family now, bound together by shared toil and triumph. It was then, beneath the blanket of endless stars, that Sam felt a sense of hope ignite, a feeling that transcended boundaries. They had all come from different paths, facing the shadows for one reason or another, but in the soft glow of the warmth they had created, they found strength and unity. Weeks turned into months, and as autumn painted the landscape in fiery shades of orange and gold, the farm transformed into a thriving hub of life once more. The intruders became steady fixtures, their faces infused with pride, a sharp contrast to the uncertainty that had once clouded their eyes. As the seasons changed, Sam began to notice something remarkable. They were thinking further ahead. They started planning together for the future, looking to improve not just the farm but their own lives as well. Ideas about starting a small market where they could sell their excess crops burgeoned, hopes rising with each passing day. One crisp afternoon, as golden sunlight spilled across the land and urgency buzzed in the air, they gathered in the barn for a meeting, the walls humming with enthusiasm. Sam stood at the front, his heart swelling with pride over how far they had all come. "Here's the plan," Sam began, gesturing to the board outlining their ideas. "I want us to take our hard work and share it." Cheers erupted around him, the enthusiasm palpable. It was as if the land itself pulsed with new energy, rippling through every soul present. The vision was larger than the fields. They would elevate themselves and help others, proving that there was strength in unity. That very night, as they celebrated another milestone, a soft knock on the barn door interrupted their laughter. Duke perked up, barking, signaling Sam that whatever came behind that door was unexpected. As Sam opened the door, a chill ran down his spine. Outside stood three figures, familiar faces twisted with expressions that reflected the shadows of fear and regret. The trio of original intruders stood before him, their postures tense, clenching their hands tightly. "We're sorry," the leader spoke, his voice trembling. "We came to apologize." Sam took a moment, gaze drifting between their faces and the open doorway behind them. His heart reflected the lessons learned under the stars, the choices made that transformed lives. He finally asked, letting the silence hang thick around them. "We want to help," the girl interjected, stepping forward. "We've seen what you've built, and we want to be a part of it." Sam felt a twinge of his old anger bubbling up, mingling with a realistic understanding forged through experience. This was what it all came back to, the understanding that life often threw curveballs, but it was not about the mistakes made, it was how one chose to rise afterward. "Come inside," he finally said, stepping back. As they entered, the tension shifted once more, new possibilities unfurling like the first rays of dawn. Sam's heart swelled, recognizing this fragile moment could herald yet another transformation, not just for these individuals, but for all of them within those walls. And as the night wore on, they sat beneath the same stars that had watched over them through their darkest nights, the moon bathing the barn in silver light. With new people at the table, they began weaving a story of redemption, of resilience, and of hope that would echo through the generations to come. In that sanctuary of uncertainty turning to possibility, Sam realized that while the shadows of the past could always haunt, together, they had woven new threads of light into the fabric of their lives. Together, they would face whatever came next, the power of community brighter than any darkness that tried to break through. The night wrapped around Maplewood Farm like a thick blanket, heavy with the darkness and an unsettling silence. Stars peppered the sky, twinkling down like sentinels, but they offered no comfort to Sam, who sat on his porch, the familiar creak of the old wooden steps echoing in the stillness. A chill hung in the air, and the farm felt strangely alive, as if it sensed something on the horizon. His loyal dog, Duke, lay at his feet, ears perked, every muscle tense, alert to the world beyond the porch. Sam sipped his coffee, the warm liquid seeping through his bones, but it wasn't enough to chase away the unease creeping up his spine. He'd spent enough nights working the land to know when something felt off. The quiet that surrounded him was the kind of silence that warned of an upcoming storm. Then it came, a sudden, sharp noise from the direction of the barn. A crash, heart racing, Sam shot up, the mug slipping from his fingers and shattering on the wooden floorboards. Duke sprang to his feet, a low growl rumbling in his throat. Through the open door of the barn, Sam could see movement, dark figures flitting about, shadows against the warm light filtering through the cracks in the wood. "Duke, stay," Sam commanded, gripping the shotgun that leaned against the wall. It was old but functional, a piece of his past he hoped would remain silent. Tonight, that might change. He stepped out into the night, each step measured, keeping low beneath the old oak trees that dotted the path to the barn. The moonlight cast long, eerie shadows, and the air was electric, charged with the thrill of danger. Adrenaline pumped through his veins like wildfire, igniting his senses. Peering into the barn, he saw three intruders, young men, maybe in their early 20s, huddled over his tools, shovels, and crates of supplies. Their clothes were ragged, faces drawn tight with fear and desperation. Sam felt a surge of anger. They were here to take what he had worked tirelessly to build. Sam's voice sliced through the night, deep and commanding. The intruders froze, heads snapping up as they registered the intrusion of his presence. A momentary pause hung in the air, the only sound being Duke's warning growl. Sam shouted, raising the shotgun, his grip steady. The intruders darted toward the back of the barn, caught off guard but quick to react. But Sam's heart was racing, anger flaring up inside him like a wildfire. Who were they to invade his home, to shatter the peace he had fought for? Before they could slip out, he stepped fully into the barn, his shadow blending with the darkness around him. He shouted again, his voice echoing through the space like thunder. The air felt charged with tension, each breath heavy with the weight of confrontation. One of the intruders' shoulder, with a nervous twitch, stopped. "Please, man, we just need food." Sam's eyes narrowed, cynicism clashing with a flicker of empathy. They were scared kids. He could see that now, desperation oozing from every pore. But hunger didn't justify taking from him. The boy swallowed hard, glancing nervously at his friends who were equally lost in the moment. We're starving," he trembled. "It's been rough out there." The night hung heavy around them, the standoff transforming from aggression to something deeper. Sam felt the old scars of his past creeping in, nights he'd spent worrying about how to feed his own family when the fields were barren. Choices made in desperation whispered in the back of his mind. Sam asked, lowering his shotgun slowly, though he still stood tall, ready for anything. "We just needed food," the taller one said, desperation overriding the veil of defiance he clung to a moment before. "We didn't mean to break in." Sam studied them, three young men, faces lined with fatigue, eyes reflecting the despair he had seen on too many faces in his life. He pressed, to creep around and steal. The words hung heavy in the air. One of the boys clasped his hands, staring at the ground. I don't know, it's been rough since." As the night wore on, something began to shift. Maybe it was empathy or the recognition of shared struggles. Maybe it was the faint flicker of humanity that still lingered between them. Sam took a deep breath, pulling away from the instinct to protect at all costs. "Okay," he said slowly, contemplating. "I'll tell you what I can do. You want food, you want a chance, work for it. Help me on the farm." The intruders exchanged glances, uncertainty flashing in their eyes. "Really?" The nervous boy seemed taken aback, disbelief etched in the lines on his face. "No tricks," Sam responded, his voice steady. "But if I find you stealing again, I won't hesitate to call the police." The tension cracked like ice, and slowly they nodded. One by one, they joined Sam in the dim light of the barn, cautiously stepping away from their previous intentions. "Thanks," the tall one said, relief evident in his voice. As Sam led them outside for the first task, he felt the tension ease in the air. They began to understand the rhythm of the farm, the way the soil breathed beneath their fingers. Days turned into weeks, and as they worked the fields together, something beautiful emerged. Laughter began to replace the nervous silence that had clung to them at first. They learned the value of hard work, the joy of crisp vegetables pulled straight from the ground, the satisfaction in cultivating life. In time, they transformed from intruders into a team, a family of sorts. With each sunset painted across the sky, joy found its way back into the farm. They shared stories as they toiled, forging connections as deep as the roots they were planting. The boys revealed their backgrounds, tales of hardship that felt achingly familiar to Sam. Disillusionment from broken homes, lost dreams overshadowed by the weight of responsibility. One night, as they gathered around a small fire after a long day, Sam shared his own story, a tale of sacrifice, of nights spent worrying about the farm. As he spoke, he noticed the younger boys listening intently, their eyes reflecting the flickering flames, hope lingering just beneath the surface of their despair. "You see," Sam explained, "every seed we plant here has a purpose. In the same way, every moment you spend here can be transformed." Seeing them wrap their minds around the concept, Sam watched understanding grow, and a flame of ambition ignited within them. Soon, the farm bloomed under their joint efforts. Crops flourished, overflowing the fields like a cornucopia of hope. With each harvest, they celebrated, the fears of yesterday fading into whispers. They had built something together, a community born from desperation but transformed by resilience. But shadows still lingered, and while the farm prospered, the outside world remained tumultuous. The echoes of the night when they first met still dwelled in Sam's mind. He knew the intruders would not remain in the dark forever. Eventually, temptation would call to them again. Then one afternoon, as they prepared for the market to sell their first harvest, that deep-seated worry resurfaced. As they arranged the vegetables in the wooden crates, laughter echoed, but Sam still felt a weight on his shoulders. Sam, the nervous boy, now more confident, said, "What happens next? What if we're not enough?" Sam looked him in the eyes, the vulnerability of their exchanges now manifesting into strength. "Then we'll face it together," he replied. "Every challenge is an opportunity to grow in the fields and in our lives." As they loaded the crates into a small trailer, they set off toward the market, each bump in the road firming their resolve. The sun beamed down on them as the scene unfolded, vibrant colors, excitement buzzing in the air. Townspeople gathered, smiles plastered on their faces as they marveled at the fresh produce. Their stall burst with life. The once ragtag crew, now a unified front, prepared to share their newfound purpose with the world. Sam watched them interact with the customers, joy radiating as they showcased their hard work. With each sale, laughter and pride intertwined, transforming worry into a collective strength. But as the sun began to set, the crowd thinned, and with it, their sense of security. Sam felt a twinge in his gut, a familiar pang of fear returning as twilight enveloped the market. When the last customer departed, a figure lingered outside the periphery, cloaked in shadow. Sam's heart dropped. He recognized them instantly, the original trio of intruders who tried to rob him. They approached slowly, expressions unreadable. Anxiety closed around him, tightening its grip. The leader called out, his voice echoing through the fading light. "Of course," Sam replied, his heart pounding. He kept his stance strong, wary of their intentions as they stepped closer. "Just wanted to see how you're doing," the leader said, hands raised, but Sam felt the weight of caution. "We're doing better than you," Sam shot back, remembering that first encounter. Those shadows might still linger, but he had built a life worth fighting for. "Listen," the leader continued, no longer boasting with bravado, "we came to apologize. We didn't mean to turn to thievery. We were desperate, hopeless. We wanted to see if you could help." Sam paused, the unease pooling in his stomach. He understood desperation all too well, but this was different. They had crossed a line, a threshold that felt nearly impossible to return from. "I don't know," he said hesitantly. "We get it," the leader urged. Things got out of hand. Hesitation marked the air, weighed down by the memories of that first night. Sam knew the shadows of crime and betrayal were alive and well. But in their eyes, he saw reflections of a desperate strength, a longing for redemption. "Let me think," Sam finally replied, not ready to shut the door entirely yet. "But know this, you break my trust, and I'll call the police before you even leave this place." As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting fiery hues into the gathering dusk, the air shifted once again. The fragile hope that had blossomed between them danced in the shadows. The promise of something more, grounded in vulnerability and grit. With the perspective of those struggling to find their footing, Sam knew the path ahead was fraught with uncertainty. Yet it was also filled with opportunity, the opportunity to forge a different story, one where redemption teamed with resilience to overcome adversity. And as night enveloped the world around him once more, Sam felt an ember of hope ignite in his heart. Together, whether through unity or shared hardship, each day had become a promise of survival, a testament to life's undeniable spirit. What began in shadows had the power to flourish towards the light, just as a seed breaks through the ground, reaching for the sun. In that moment, Sam understood. The farm was never just about crops. It was a sanctuary for lost souls to find their way. With trust slowly rebuilding, the night held endless possibilities, shimmering like stars, a promise of brighter days yet to come. The night crept in like a shadow, silent and heavy, draping Maplewood Farm in a cloak of darkness. Sam sat on the porch, the wood creaking gently with each shift of his weight. He sipped lukewarm coffee from a chipped mug, eyes scanning the horizon where endless fields met the inky sky. A faint rustle danced through the air, sending a shiver down his spine. Something was off, and he could feel it in his bones, a cold, instinctual knowing that had kept him alive through years of farming. Duke, his loyal dog, lay at his feet, the sinewy muscles coiling and uncoiling like a coiled spring. The wind whispered through the corn, a low hum mingling with the night's eerie tranquility. Then it happened. A sudden crash echoed from the barn, sharp and jarring against the stillness. Sam's heart raced, adrenaline surging through his veins, every nerve ending screaming alert. "Stay put, Duke," Sam growled, rising to his feet. He grabbed the old shotgun that leaned against the porch wall, the weight of it familiar and reassuring as he moved with careful determination toward the barn. Each step felt heavy yet resolute, a man on a mission to protect what was his. The barn loomed in front of him, its darkness swirling with potential danger. Sam swallowed hard, his breath steadying as he stepped inside, the air thick with the smell of hay and the din of rustling activity. There in the shadows he spotted 3 figures, their movements frantic and disorganized. Sam shouted, his voice slicing through the air like a knife. The intruders stiffened, heads jerking up in surprise, eyes wide with fear. One of them barked, spinning around, but it was too late. Sam advanced, the shotgun raised but steady, his gaze resolute. The tension in the barn snapped tight as a bowstring. Sam's mind raced with thoughts of the farm he had poured every ounce of sweat into, the land that had been his lifeblood. They were here to take what he had built, and he was ready to fight to protect it. The figures turned, their faces illuminated by the shaft of moonlight peeking through the dusty barn door. Panic flooded their features, and for a fleeting moment, Sam considered their fragility, youthful souls caught in a web of desperation. One of them, a wiry boy with dirt smudged across his cheek, opened his mouth to speak. "Please," Sam shot back, every word dripping with an intensity that echoed through the barn. They were trembling, the weight of fear making their knees weak. Another shouted, hands raised defensively. "We didn't want any trouble." In that moment, something shifted within Sam. Yes, they had tried to rob him, but there was more to it, something deeper than the act itself. Shadows from his past flickered in his mind, times when he had struggled under heavy burdens, when he had felt the weight of the world pressing down. He found himself asking, lowering the shotgun fractionally, though his stance remained tense. If they meant harm, he knew he had to be ready to act. The boy in the center swallowed hard, a flicker of vulnerability crossing his features. "We lost everything," he said, voice trembling. "Our families, our homes." Desperation is no excuse for stealing, Sam countered, his voice firm yet softer, compassion creeping in like the dawn. Please, the leader said, desperation spilling out. We'll leave, we just need something to eat. The air in the barn felt electric, charged with uncertainty. Sam assessed the situation, the raw honesty in their eyes weighed against the life he had fought tooth and nail to preserve. A tension settled over them like a heavy fog. All right, Sam decided, shifting slightly. 3 pairs of eyes widened, incredulous. Asked the boy who had spoken earlier. I'm giving you a chance. Help me on the farm, work the fields, and I'll feed you, he replied, his resolve firming. Stillness enveloped the barn, the intruders exchanging apprehensive glances. Finally, one of them nodded, his face a mixture of relief and disbelief. Okay, he said, stepping forward. With the tension dissipating, Sam led them out into the night. Under the pale light of the moon, they trudged to the fields where the crops stretched forward, resilient and tenacious. Sam pointed out what needed to be done, his hands guiding them through the basics of planting, weeding, and watering. The rustling sound of the corn swayed, a companion to their labors. Days passed, each one bleeding into the next, and as they worked side by side, something remarkable began to happen. Laughter echoed through the fields, soaking the soil with newfound camaraderie. The 3 once-troubled boys learned the nuances of farming, their initial hesitance giving way to pride as they saw the fruits of their labor. The grain fields blossomed under their shared efforts as vibrant shades of green crowned each stalk. Every morning, cold water splashed against their sun-kissed skin as they woke up to a new day filled with possibilities. Together, they forged a bond that transcended their earlier intentions. As sunsets painted the skies in hues of orange and lavender, they gathered around a small bonfire, the warmth radiating into the night air. Who were they now? Each boy shared stories of their pasts that were filled with heartaches and losses. They became more than mere workers, they became companions in vulnerability and redemption. Sam shared stories of growing up on the farm, his father's lessons on tending to the land, the storms that threatened their livelihood, and the endless cycles of hope. The boys listened, captivated, each story weaving a thread that bound them closer together. One evening, after a long day of labor, the boy with the dirt-smudged face spoke up. You've treated us like family, even when we didn't deserve it. The question lingered in the air, heavy with meaning. Sam thought for a moment, allowing the flickering flames to reflect on his eyes. Because we all stumble, we all make mistakes. Their faces lit up with understanding, laughter intertwining with sincerity. As the days turned into weeks, the farm thrived, supported by tenacious hands that had once sought destruction. Sam found a sense of purpose woven into the very fabric of their teamwork, but shadows still lurked. Despite the progress, Sam's instincts tugged at him, whispering winds of caution. After weeks of peace, a familiar unease began to simmer just beneath the surface. He couldn't shake it off, even as crops flourished and relationships deepened. Life had taught him that the calmest moments often concealed the most turbulent storms. Then came that fateful night. As they gathered in the barn for their usual evening debrief, laughter and camaraderie hung thick in the air. Then the atmosphere shifted, the creaking of the barn door echoed ominously as it swung open. Sam immediately tensed, his heart racing as he scanned the shadows. There they were, 2 figures who had once entered his life uninvited, eyes glinting with determination. Sam, one of them called, a flicker of uncertainty in his voice. It's us. The earlier trio of intruders stiffened, their initial confidence faltering as they recognized the newcomers. Sam's instincts flared to life. There was a danger in the air, a direct challenge to the fragile balance they had built together. Sam asked, his voice low but firm, conscious of the way the tension surged like an electric current. We know we messed up. We want to apologize, the leader said, stepping into the light. Sam retorted, irritation growing. His mind traced back to the initial encounter, the chaos they had brought with them. Please, we want to change, the second intruder pleaded, desperation creeping into his tone. We're hoping. Hope is a dangerous thing when you've burned bridges, Sam shot back, his voice steady. But as Sam looked around at the 3 boys, he noticed streaks of fear change into flashes of resolve. They stood strong, faces etched with determination. Their eyes held something powerful, an unspoken commitment to resilience. Sam, we weren't ready then, but we are now. Let us help, the first boy urged, standing tall. The room pulsated with energy, conversations intertwining as emotions surged, each person wrestling with conflicting feelings. For a moment, Sam hesitated, torn between the betrayals of the past and the strong bonds established in the present. Behind him, the 3 boys stood firm as a united front, voices mingling with conviction. Maybe everyone deserves a second chance, Sam finally said, though uncertainty tinged his words. But I won't tolerate any more games. The intruders nodded, relief flooding their features. Their prayers had been answered, but the road ahead was still fraught with tension. As they joined together in the fields, their efforts blossomed into new growth. They bonded over the challenges, their laughter echoing through the land once more. Each evening they convened under the stars, stories exchanged, the past unraveling at their feet like discarded burdens. But danger still lurked at the edges of their revival. Sam noticed the unease shadowed in the eyes of the newcomers, still grappling with their pasts, still haunted by echoes of desperation. There were tough days ahead, moments where shadows threatened to reclaim ground. He watched them carefully, wondering if they could truly withstand the storms. As summer turned to fall, the fruit of their labor filled the market. Townsfolk shared in their success, bartering under the golden hues of harvest season. Life surged back into Maplewood, with laughter surviving where shadows once dwelled, but summoning the courage to truly change rooted itself in the depths of their hearts. They came to understand that while they could build a life anew, all it took was one misstep to tumble back into the darkness. One windy evening, late into the harvest, as they returned from the market, the air felt charged. Suspense hung thick under the harvest moon. Goosebumps prickled on Sam's skin, that deep-rooted instinct firing off warnings. There, lurking at the edge of the fields, he glimpsed shadows that didn't belong. Figures moved about, familiar but unwanted, eyes glinting with shadows of revenge. The intruders gathered, sensing the tension ripple through the air. Sam turned to them, raising a warning finger. Commanded, voice resonating through the encroaching darkness as the earlier trio ignited into action. "It's them," Sam shouted, heart thundering as muscles tense with anticipation, poised to defend everything they had rebuilt. The figures drew closer, a sense of recklessness pulsating in their movements. "You thought you could just forget us," the leader shouted, his tone laced with rage, a desperate gamble born from bitterness. Fear surged in the intruders alongside Sam, but this time they stood shoulder to shoulder. Together, they had forged a bond. Together, they would rise to meet this challenge. As darkness closed around them, the threat loomed large, and yet there was something profound brewing beneath the surface. They had faced shadows before. They were no longer afraid. With courage igniting within them, they confronted the oncoming tide. Sam felt the powerful surge of support that resonated through his companions. It wasn't just a fight for survival, it was a fight for hope, for renewal. They prepared to defend their reclaimed lives through every struggle, through every shadow that dared to loom. Together, they would rise, fiercely securing a future brightened by resilience, proving that no shadow could extinguish the power of their spirit. Sam stood tall, the night pressing in around him, but this time with purpose. In unity, they would prevail, forging a bright new dawn. They would protect not just the farm, but also the legacy they created together, a testament to the strength found in vulnerability, growth, and unyielding hope. As the polished blades of determination met the dark night, he knew they would face whatever came next. The echoes of redemption would resonate through the land, drawing new strength from its deep roots, a living legacy emerging from the shadows. They would rise together. The moon hung low, casting an eerie glow over Maplewood Farm. The land, usually alive with the sounds of crickets and rustling leaves, was shrouded in an unsettling silence. Sam sat on his porch, the chill of the autumn night biting through his flannel shirt. Duke, his faithful dog, lay at his feet, eyes alert, sensing that something was off. Sam took a sip of cold coffee, his instincts prickling beneath the surface. He had spent years building a life here, and he wasn't ready to let anyone take it away. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed from the barn, sending a jolt through him. Sam's heart raced as he shot up, the mug clattering to the floor, shards scattering like lost hopes. Duke growled, muscles tensing, ready for action. In a split second, Sam reached for the old shotgun resting against the wall, the metal cool under his hand, a tool that had been more than just protection. It was a lifeline, a promise to defend what he loved. Sam commanded, stepping onto the yard, the familiar scent of the earth grounding him as he prepared for whatever lay ahead. Shadows danced across the ground, warping under the silver light of the moon. Sam moved quietly, each step purposeful, a hunter tracking his prey. He approached the barn, breathing steady, forcing himself to remain calm. Inside, he caught sight of movement, a trio of figures rifling through his tools, panic and desperation written across their faces. Before he could step in, one of them turned, eyes wide, fear etched deeply in their expression. Sam's voice boomed, echoing off the wooden beams. The intruders froze, panic evident in their faces. The tallest one shouted, "We didn't mean any harm." Sam's instincts wrestled with his growing empathy. He noticed their ragged clothing and haggard features, but the bitterness of betrayal stirred something deep inside him. "You think you can just break in, steal what's mine, and walk away?" Another voice squeaked, trembling with fear. "We're starving. We don't want trouble." The tension in the barn was palpable, thick as the darkness enveloping them. Sam's heart raced, torn between his anger and a nagging sense of understanding. He too had felt despair, the feeling of hopelessness that came with watching everything he loved slip through his fingers. Looking at their desperate faces, he felt a flicker of compassion. "You made a choice to come here," he said, lowering his shotgun but still keeping it close. The smallest of the three stepped forward, swallowing hard. "We're not looking for trouble, just a chance to eat, please," Sam echoed, skepticism lacing his voice. "Just give us a chance," the boy implored, eyes wide with sincerity. "We'll work for you." Sam shifted his weight, contemplating. The thought of letting them stay gnawed at him, but could he trust them? His heart wrestled with the weight of his decision. Memories flooded his mind of long nights spent battling storms, the weight of the world resting on his shoulders. "All right," he finally said, breathing deeply, weighing the consequences. "I'll give you a chance, but understand this. If I see you trying to take anything again, I won't hesitate to take action." The intruders nodded, relief washing over their faces as if a lifeline had been thrown. "Thank you," the tallest one murmured, gratitude replacing desperation. As they moved to leave the barn, Sam felt a ripple of uncertainty. He didn't know if it was the right choice, but he had made a decision. He'd seen too many people fall into desperation. Maybe this was a chance to pave a different road. "Get to work," he said, motioning to the cornfield. "Start with the weeding." Under the pale light of the moon, they trudged into the fields, fear merging with determination. Sam watched them closely, his instincts still on high alert. Each step they took was a reminder that trust, once broken, was difficult to mend. Days turned into a routine. Dawn broke with golden hues, and the trio marked Tom and Jenna learned the rhythms of the farm. They toiled in the fields, hands in the soil, laughter gradually replacing the nervous tension that had gripped them from the start. Sam found himself observing them, intrigued by their willingness to learn and adapt. As they worked alongside him, conversations flowed. Sam shared stories of his life as a farmer, tales of floods and droughts, victories and losses. He watched as they transformed from desperate young thieves into diligent workers, their fears giving way to pride and even friendship. "What you're doing is hard," Mark admitted one afternoon, wiping sweat from his brow. "Most people don't," Sam replied, planting a row of seeds. "They see the fruits of labor but forget the grit that goes into growing it." Night after night, they gathered around a small fire, sharing a few moments of respite from the toil. Those evenings became a sanctuary. Stories were exchanged, laughter bubbled up into the cool night air, and camaraderie slowly formed. With every shared meal, they came to recognize their growth not just as workers but as people willing to fight for each other. Yet the shadows of their past lingered, a silent reminder of who they once were. Each of them seemed haunted by their choices, the desperation that had driven them to Sam's barn. Sometimes, late at night, Sam would catch them staring into the fire, lost in their own thoughts, the flickering light reflecting their uncertainties. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting deep shadows across the land, Sam spoke up. "I know where you've been, I see it in your faces, but you're here now and that means you have a choice." "I want to fight," Jenna replied, fierce determination lighting her eyes. "I want to learn how to make something of myself." "Me too," Mark echoed, nodding with conviction. "This farm." As the days passed, they grew stronger, not just in their labor, but in their resolve. Sam allowed himself to hope that perhaps this hard-earned trust could lead them all to brighter days. But then came that fateful stormy night. Thunder rumbled in the distance, ominous and foreboding. Sam had been preparing for it all day, covering crops, securing windows, and preparing for the worst. The winds began to howl, shaking the barn, rattling the very foundations of his home. Just as he finished securing the last of the panels, a loud bang echoed from the barn door. It flung open, and there stood the three intruders from the first night, the very faces that sent shivers down Sam's spine. They wore desperation like a cloak, one that they hadn't shed since he had cast them out. The leader shouted, rain soaking through his clothes and plastering his hair against his forehead. The sight of them sent Sam's heart racing. Trust hung by a thread, and yet he saw the same fear reflected in their eyes that he'd seen in the trio he had taken in. The storm raged around them, nature thrumming with power. Sam's voice echoed, steady yet edged with tension. "Please, we're desperate," the boy implored, his voice cracking amid the howling wind. Against every instinct, Sam hesitated. He turned back toward the barn to find Mark, Tom, and Jenna watching from the shadows, expressions etched in uncertainty. "We can't leave them out there, Sam," Jenna urged, stepping forward. "They'll get hurt, people make mistakes." Sam countered, uncertainty clawing at him. "They're scared," Mark interjected, "just like we were." Sam felt the walls closing in. Those words resonated deeply. He had been given a chance, and now he had to weigh the consequences. In the midst of the raging storm, he recognized the strength of solidarity. "Fine," he replied, tightening his jaw. "But I'm watching you. Any sign of trouble and you're out." The three intruders nodded, relief washing over their sodden faces as they hurried inside, dripping water onto the barn floor. Sam watched as they stepped into the light, the darkness slowly retreating. As the storm raged outside, the 8 of them gathered in the barn, an uneasy alliance forming under the strain of thunder. Tension hummed in the air, a cautious understanding, like a dance between predators and prey. Hours passed, the storm playing a chaotic symphony outside, and as lightning illuminated the barn, the looming shadows sparked an unexpected camaraderie. Slowly, stories began to emerge, a mix of sorrow and laughter filled the space. They shared tales of their pasts, their loss, and their ambitions of becoming better. When finally the storm passed, a stillness settled over them. As the dawn broke, illuminating the wet fields with golden light, a sense of hope twinkled in their eyes. "We need to work together now," Sam told the assembled group, heart pounding with the weight of his decision. "Together," Jenna echoed, a smile forming on her face. With that, a fragile yet firm bond began to strengthen, a promise that transcended their shadows. Weeks rolled into months, the scars of the past slowly stitching together under the healing sun. With unwavering determination, they tackled each task, each challenge that came their way. Sam taught them to cultivate the land, but they also grew from each other, learning to forgive, rebuild, and trust once more. As seasons shifted, the farm transformed into a hub of life, a testament to their resilience. Together, they fought through challenges, treating each setback as an opportunity to grow stronger, not just as individuals but as a united front. On a bright summer afternoon, they hosted the townsfolk for their first heartfelt harvest festival. Sam watched as the community gathered, smiles exchanged, laughter ringing through the air, children playing, and joy blossoming in every corner. As he stood there, surrounded by those he had once considered enemies but had transformed into allies, Sam felt a rush of pride. This wasn't just a farm anymore. It was a sanctuary, a place where hopes and dreams were nurtured, nourished by hard work and the promise of a brighter future. And as the sun dipped low in the sky that evening, painting the fields in shades of gold, Sam realized that the shadows of the past had become stepping stones towards something better. Trust wasn't just about the absence of fear. It was an active choice, forged each day with every shared moment. What had begun with desperation and mistrust had blossomed into a community willing to fight for each other. In that moment, under the vast expanse of stars that had once witnessed betrayal and darkness, a new story began to unfold, one of resilience, redemption, and unwavering hope. The farms thrummed with life, alive with the promise of tomorrow, and Sam knew that together, they could face whatever lay ahead in the journey of life. The shadows would no longer define them. They had risen, united in purpose and passion, standing tall in the face of their past. And as the stars twinkled above, they understood that the future was bright, filled with endless possibilities waiting to be cultivated. The moon hung high and full in the sky, casting an eerie light over Maplewood Farm. The land, usually vibrant and alive with the sounds of crickets and rustling leaves, was wrapped in an unsettling stillness. Sam sat on his porch, the wood creaking beneath him, eyes scanning the horizon where the fields stretched wide and wild. Duke, his loyal dog, lay at his feet, ears perked, sensing the tension in the air. Sam murmured, running a hand through his hair. The wind whispered through the tall cornstalks, and the familiar creak of the old barn broke the silence. But tonight something didn't feel right. Then, without warning, a loud crash reverberated from the barn, shattering the quiet night like glass. Sam's heart raced. He shot up from the porch, adrenaline flooding his veins, and dropped his mug, the sound of it breaking echoing in the stillness. Sam commanded, gripping the old shotgun that hung on the porch wall. It was a relic, worn and rusty, but it had seen him through tough times before. As he stepped onto the yard, the cool night air battled the fire of determination rising within him. With every heartbeat, he moved toward the barn, instincts kicking in as he peered into the dim light. Shadows danced in the corners, and three figures moved quickly, rummaging through his tools and supplies, their intentions clear. Sam's grip tightened on the shotgun as his mind raced. "Hey," Sam shouted, his voice booming like thunder. The intruders froze, eyes snapping up as fear washed over their faces. One of them yelled, but it was too late. Sam stepped fully into the barn, shotgun raised but steady, ready to confront whoever dared to invade his sanctuary. He warned, rage coursing through him. Their faces, illuminated by the flickering light, looked young and desperate. "Please," one of them pleaded, his tone trembling, desperation evident in his voice. Sam's glare was fierce, the weight of countless nights spent working the land heavy on his shoulders. He wasn't just defending the farm, he was protecting the life he had built with his own two hands. Another voice cried, hands raised in surrender. Sam's heart wavered for a moment as he regarded the trio. They weren't hardened criminals, desperation clung to them like a second skin. "You chose to trespass," he growled, but as he watched the fear in their eyes, something shifted within him. He demanded, lowering the shotgun slightly. The tallest boy stepped forward, eyes wide with a mix of fear and vulnerability. "We lost everything, our homes, our families. We thought we could find something to eat here." Sam's heart tightened. He recognized that look, the hollow eyes of someone driven to the edge by circumstances beyond their control. The fear mingled with sincerity struck a chord deep within him. "Look, I get it," Sam said, lowering the gun further, though he still kept it in hand. "But you've got to understand how this feels from my side." The boys glanced at each other, uncertainty flickering in the air. "We'll work for it," the smallest one said, voice trembling. The barn fell quiet, tension thick between them. Sam could feel the weight of the decision pressing down on him. He had always been a man of his word. Every choice made had shaped his destiny. "All right," he finally said, determination hardening his resolve. "You want food, you'll work for it." Relief flooded their faces as they nodded vigorously. "We'll do it," the tallest boy exclaimed, glancing at his friends with wide eyes filled with hope. Sam led them outside, the cool night air brushing against their skin. Together, they trudged toward the fields where the tall corn swayed gently. "Get started with the weeds over there," Sam instructed, motioning toward a section of the garden. As the night deepened, they moved through the soil together, the tension of fear shifting into the rhythm of labor. The boys learned quickly, hands digging into the earth, pulling weeds and planting seeds. Sam watched them closely, his instincts still wary, but he recognized their drive to turn their lives around. Days rolled into weeks, and the daily routine of hard work began to shape their transformation. The boys became a part of the farm. They laughed, shared meals, and slowly connected in ways Sam hadn't thought possible. One afternoon, while harvesting tomatoes, Mark, the tallest boy, said, "You know, I never thought I could enjoy working the fields. It feels good." Sam nodded, feeling a swell of pride. That's what life on a farm is about. It's tough, but it's rewarding. As the sun dipped below the horizon, they gathered around a small fire, crackling in the cool dusk. Stories echoed into the night, tales of hardships, dreams, and the weight of past mistakes. The bond they were forging wrapped tightly around them, a shield against their previous lives, but a nagging worry still twisted in Sam's gut. While the boys were working hard and learning to trust, what would happen when the outside world encroached upon the brief peace they had built? He feared the shadows of their past would rear their ugly heads. Then came the night when everything changed. Thunder rumbled in the distance, dark clouds looming over the fields like an ominous omen. Sam had an uneasy feeling in his gut that something was off. They had just finished dinner when the winds began to howl, rattling the barn doors. Jenna, the youngest of the trio, looked uneasy. "Let's keep an eye on it," he replied, but deep down, instinct told him it wasn't just the storm that lured danger. Suddenly, a loud bang echoed outside, like a gunshot slicing through the tense atmosphere. Sam's heart sank. He ordered, his voice firm as he gripped the shotgun, ready to confront whatever came next. He stepped outside, the wind billowing around him, whipping through the tall grass like a furious storm. His heart thumped heavily in his chest as he scanned the yard, scanning shadows against the stormy night. Then he saw them, figures lingering at the edge of the property, silhouettes against the backdrop of clouds. The familiar trio, the same boys who had once tried to rob him, stood there again, their eyes filled with fury, desperation etched into their features. Sam shouted, holding the shotgun steady, the world around him crackling with the tension of impending violence. One of the intruders shouted back, "You thought you could throw us out and forget us." Duke barked fiercely at their approach, and the boys who had been working so hard alongside Sam stepped forward, standing shoulder to shoulder with him. The bond they'd formed was palpable, a shield of solidarity against the incoming threat. Mark declared, fiery determination lighting his gaze. "We're not afraid of you," Tom added, voice steady. The three boys from Sam's barn stood firm before the intruders, hearts racing, fear clashing with newfound courage. Sam felt pride swell in his chest, but uncertainty loomed heavily over the night, all too aware of the chaos that could erupt. Jenna shouted, an unexpected fierceness in her voice, taking a step forward. The storm raged around them, but so did the battle of wills in the face of danger. The wind howled as the tension crackled, and Sam prepared for the confrontation ahead. He felt the weight of not just his life, but their future resting on this moment. Sam roared as the storm bolted around them in synchronization with his rising anger. "You had your chances," sneered the leader of the intruders, eyes flashing with mockery. "What you've built is nothing but a house of cards." Before Sam could react, the three intruders lunged forward, launching themselves at Mark, Tom, and Jenna. But what erupted next was a whirlwind of chaos. The rain hammered down, soaking everything in its path as fists flew and voices clashed in the midst of thunder. Sam found himself diving into the fray, instincts kicking in as adrenaline surged. Blows connected, bodies tangled in the mud, each moment a battle between light and dark. Sam fought not only to defend his life, but to protect the family he had forged from trust and hard work. The sound of shouted curses mingled with the storm, creating a symphony of chaos that echoed across the farm. Just when it felt like despair threatened to take over, Sam caught sight of Mark, determination painted across his face as he swung a punch, driving back one of the intruders. But then, out of nowhere, another punch connected, sending Mark sprawling into the muddy earth. Jenna cried, adrenaline surging as she rushed to help him. In the stark backdrop of the stormy night, the realization hit Sam like a freight train. The darkness wouldn't give up easily. They had come with a vendetta, and what started as a simple confrontation had escalated into a battle for survival. Just as Sam felt the world spinning, he locked eyes with the leader, the anger between them palpable. "You think you can take what's mine?" With renewed ferocity, he charged forward, only to find himself met with a blinding flash of lightning, illuminating the battlefield for a brief moment. And in that instant, he saw more than just intruders. He saw the convergence of choices made in desperation. But as the thunder roared, the chaos continued, the landscape shifting wildly beneath their feet, each moment drawing them deeper into an unpredictable tide. Would they all make it out? Would the farm survive? In the heart of the storm, Sam fought with everything he had, but one question loomed larger than the storm itself. How far would he go to protect the life he had built? And just as hope hung by a thread, another flash of lightning illuminated the shadows, revealing one more figure stepping into the fray, and Sam's heart dropped. A voice cried out, cutting through the chaos, as if the storm itself had unleashed all its fury into their lives. The tide of battle hung precariously, and in that moment, everything teetered on the edge of uncertainty. Would he stand united, or would the storm rip them apart? In that fleeting second, while fists flew and the rain pounded relentlessly, Sam knew that this night would change everything. The stakes had never been higher. The battle for Maplewood Farm had only just begun.